Well, we are back at the Net Zero Nuclear Pavilion at COP29, and it is a pleasure to have again Neil Wilmshurst, which I can never pronounce your name correctly. I will start again.
Okay.
Wilmshurst. We are back at the Net Zero Nuclear Pavilion at COP29, and it is a pleasure to have with me my friend. It's lovely to have you again, Neil.
Okay.
Neil Wilmshurst, who is the Senior Vice President of EPRI, the Electric Power Research Institute in the US, but a global organization. So, Neil, this is your second COP.
Yeah.
What have you noticed? It's same, different? How do you see things?
It's different. There's a lot of energy in the room. I tell you, I'm noticing more the developing countries being more vocal, saying, if you like, don't forget about us. And then there's the other side, there's the developed countries are having this deep technological discussion. And whereas in Dubai, I think we all coined the term of the nuclear COP, and this was meant to be or build as the finance COP. And literally about half an hour ago, we put a LinkedIn post out there where I've tagged this as the AI COP. There's so many conversations in the developed countries, panels and roundtables, where people are kicking around, is AI an opportunity or a threat, and how do we deal with it? So there's a lot of that going on in the background. But the developed country dialogue and the developing country dialogue, there still continues to be that big gap in the middle.
You know, I've noticed that. I've been in many sessions, sometimes participating, sometimes attending, watching the dialogue. And I mean, I think it's very important that in the developed world we have woken up to this enormous growth in demand that we are experiencing, and of course we have realized how having 24/7 carbon-free energy, such as nuclear, is very important. But I think that you are right. We still haven't closed that gap. That in addition to powering AI, we really need to get out of energy poverty 800 million people.
Yeah.
So that's still quite a lot of work that needs to be done, right?
Yeah. So yeah, the whole energy poverty is a conversation which isn't yet being grappled with properly, and that's why we get to the finance COP. But the counterpoint to that, of course, is it's the developed countries decarbonizing that make the biggest difference. So the focus on the developed countries, the high emitters, is the right focus. But what we have to do is make sure the developing countries leapfrog the mistakes we made.
No, that's very important. Let's make sure that we support them so they get already to clean energy systems that are going to be able to help them, develop their industry, socioeconomic growth, etc.
Yeah.
So, do you feel? I mean, I agree with you. I think that the energy is here, and we've seen a lot of good conversations. But sometimes I feel that it's still just conversations, that we are not taking the next step to actually roll up our sleeves and do something.
I think you and I have talked about this many times. There's lots of conversation about what we could do, what we should do, and people keeping analysing, looking for the perfect solution. And I reflect back on a conversation I had earlier this year when we were at the G7 in Italy. And I was talking to the Italian energy minister. And I asked him what his view on climate change was, whether it's optimistic or pessimistic. And his reply, it matched my opinion, which was he is a pragmatic optimist. And what that really translates to is don't keep looking for the perfect, cheapest solution. Just do something and get on with it. I think that is the growing conversation I'm seeing now, is people are realizing it's almost 2025. We have 2030 goals, 2040 goals, 2050 goals. You've got to start building something, and the something has to be the technology we have, and accept that technology will come along that's better in the future, but commit to doing something now.
I mean, and we do have technologies, including nuclear, that can definitely play a role today, that can be deployed certainly at the speed, hopefully at the scale, if we work together. And I know you and I have had this conversation also that to really reach this speed and scale, it needs to be a global partnership. We cannot go country by country or even region by region. We really need to deploy these technologies in multiple countries as quickly as possible.
Yeah, there's conversations going on and moving to nuclear. Nuclear is one of those technologies that needs to deploy, and the conversation since Dubai has continued, and nuclear is getting more and more airtime as one of those technologies that's going to be banked. But nuclear can't be really deployed at scale in isolation, country by country. We need countries to pull together to coordinate. The secret for nuclear is getting as quickly as we can to repeat projects to that mythical nth of a kind, the learnings and the savings. And we were together this morning at a US DOE, Department of State panel, talking about Ukraine. Ukraine rebuilding, deploying SMRs is going to be a wonderful thing for Ukraine, but it's also going to be a way to actually get quicker to nth of a kind by Ukraine rapidly building out SMRs. And that's a great example of how globally we can actually get the order books full, stimulate the supply chain, and actually get things rolling. And I'm starting to see that dynamic build up.
No, I mean, and I think that we've discussed this many times. We cannot go project to project. We have to have a program. It needs to have this longer term vision, and we need to countries. Yes, it's good to have the energy policies, but then translate those energy policies into industrial policies, and then put in place, these capabilities, whether it's industrial infrastructure, supply chain, clearly workforce, which we are doing quite a lot of work on. So tell us a little bit more about some of those efforts that you are having at EPRI on workforce development.
Well, workforce development, I think we all intuitively know that there's the longest way home to building and operating a nuclear power plant is the workforce. And I think very few, if anyone, would actually deny the fact we're late at dealing with the workforce, and actually accelerating that workforce pipeline to meet tripling nuclear is the biggest challenge we face. So we're trying to figure out a way at EPRI of how we can leverage the training capabilities that existing nuclear countries have to actually present those to the new entrant countries using the techniques we all learned through the pandemic. Do you have to be in a classroom? Can you do things remotely? How are the ways we can really develop the curricula needed for different countries depending on their starting point? For example, Poland may have a different undoubtedly has a different starting point to Kenya. So how do you actually develop the curricula, customize the needs to meet that, so that these countries are ready and capable to deploy and operate and manage a nuclear program? It's a heavy lift, but at least we're starting.
I agree. There is always a lag in when you develop human capabilities. It does take time until they can get and actually take the controls. So, thank you, Neil, for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you. And yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sama. Hope to see you again soon.
Yes.